Mr. Mayor, this meeting schedule was published in the December 31, January 1, 2014 edition of the Henry Daily Herald newspaper. The agenda for tonight was posted on City Hall first floor on March the 28th, 2014, and published on our city's website on March the 31st, 2014. Yes, properly advertised and requirements met.
Mr. Dale, welcome. Dale, nice to see you. Come up and have a seat, young man. Nice to see you. Thank you. We're going to give you, we always like to see you. I think by turning this over, it's going to be 5 minutes. Have a seat. And we look forward to hearing what you got to say. Yes, sir.
I have one question. City of McDonough gave me this paper last March 2030. We did rules about the tax business, but I don't see any of these rules followed by my neighbor in south. So this rules does it apply this property? It does not apply.
So I'm a little lost. What is this?
Okay, this is the city gave me this paper rules.
Well, fire department code. Oh, I'm sure it applies to everybody.
Yeah, but I don't see anything is applied there. They keep working with the tractor trailer, they park anywhere. This property, very small property. We already have time.
Well, you're going to have to kind of hit it. What is your concern?
Okay, with 3 times written out application in community development, I want to know what kind the zoning property in my neighbor that has out. Because this paper says something different, they look like different way.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Our community development director is not here, and it kind of puts me in a bind. I think what we should do is let me set up a meeting with him. I'll be there too, and set up a meeting with Rodney and see if I had known that. I think I could save you a little time and us too, because I would have invited him here. I did not know what your concern was.
This is more than 1 year, right? The 3 time application,
Yeah.
I want to pay whatever the application they give me I will agree to pay the fee.
Yes.
I need one copy, what kind permission does the child south have and what kind they work. They look like park vehicle anywhere, DOT van 24/7. When if I call the city of police department, Mr. Officer Hawking told me they don't see anything there. When I contact the DOT, the officer come there, they told me this is the rules, so no one park on DOT land. This is common rules. So when I complain there, so no one listen anything, and they intentionally put the vehicle on the driveway.
I know.
And we have all kind of picture here.
And I know you've had some concerns. We need to be fair to you and give you every opportunity to hear from our community development person, code enforcement. But if you please permit me to work out an arrangement, come and I'll be happy to sit in. I'm not very qualified for anything, but I'll make sure you get a fair hearing. Is that fair?
Just I want to know because this rules is not applied, so I'm supposed to send the email every officer because I'm really tired. I send every officer in email. I'm sorry that, but I don't have any way. I can spend the attorney. Look like 10,000 retainer people and attorney.
Yes.
I ask every officer to need the personal meeting from send the email. No even any officer send me email back. I come in city of McDonough more than 5 times to ask about the meeting with Mr. Gardner, Mr. Rodney Hart. They set up my appointment last Monday and they canceled my appointment. I understand that, it's okay, because he's busy. So I don't know.
You can rest assured, I'll put a time frame together that's satisfactory to you and the others here in the city. And let's see if we can sit down and work it out. I think among all of us, I'm a little confused because I'm usually confused.
My point is only that here.
Yeah,
If
okay.
they paper, this rules is not applied this property.
Yeah.
So I told you to send email, anything.
It's got to be consistent across the board. It's got to be
This
totally
rules is not applied this property.
okay, all right.
I'm sorry to say, but
No, We
Because I
appreciate it.
bother too much people, I know that, but I don't have way, just I send email this. I'm middle class people, okay, I'm poor, I can do.
No. I'm just one of you, that's all I am. I'm no more than you are. We're
Okay,
delighted to
whatever
have you
they
in.
say here, okay? This is sitting here with this paper.
Okay. We'll give you an opportunity to be heard. Okay, fair enough? Thank you so much, Councilman.
I'm sorry about that.
No, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Janice gonna let me get that tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got the agenda. There's an item there, 6E, is the only one that I want to postpone, and that was late this afternoon. Having said that, I entertain a motion that the agenda be approved.
So moved.
And a second. And a second. Any questions? Any comment? Ms. Price, please restate the motion and the second.
The motion is to approve the agenda with one amendment, and we are postponing item 6E.
Okay? All those in favor? Opposition? We have just have a quorum. That's fair enough. 4 is a magic number for us. And then we move down to the approval of the consent agenda, which is the item that we have postponed 6E. And having said that, I entertain a motion that I be authorized to sign these contracts and approve the consent agenda. Councilor Stewart, have a second. Pruitt. Anybody have any questions? Any comments? Ms. Price, share the motion and the second.
Okay, the motion is to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 6E, and to authorize you to sign all documents related to the above.
Okay, Councilman, would you please vote at this time? Those in favor?
4 in favor.
And those in opposition? Favor, 4-1, 4-0. Okay, I read the minutes of March the 17th. They write voluminous. I didn't see anything. I called Ms. Price, and I would recommend council that the minutes of March 17th be approved.
So moved.
Second. Second. Question. Anybody note any deletion or additions? Hearing none, Ms. Price, share the motion.
The motion is to approve the minutes of the March 17, 2014 meeting.
Okay, please vote. Those in council?
4 in favor.
4 again, magic number. Okay, Mr. Gardner, this is a right interesting meeting we have. We want to talk about SPOS projects, and I guess everybody, I've got my list that we have talked about. We've got to fine tune that and get it down to something that we can handle for us. You have the floor, and I guess I got a copy of that somewhere.
The two lists are in your binder. And Councilman Naughty is stuck in traffic and is on her way. Councilman Vaughn is also on her way.
So, okay, Mr. Gardner, you have the floor.
Alrighty. And I'm gonna try to split the screen, Mr. Mayor. That ain't gonna work. Just realize that's not gonna work. So they'll work out from this list. Kind of giving you a brief history, and I know it's good to have all of our members here. Chief, you want to bring that light down just a little bit for me?
All right.
So it could be clear for the folks in the audience.
There you go.
Okay. Back last year, we started working on our sports list, before the referendum was approved for the special purpose local option sales tax. We had basically come up with a list of projects and categorized them under some subheadings of parkland improvements, public safety, streets, housing, and education, and cultural resource. At the time, we were figuring out what our total SPOS allotment would be. There were some variations, and we came up with a high, a mid, and a low, and then the county came back to us with a number. As you know, we were going up and down, fluctuating between 17 million and 22 million, and then they came back and said it's going to be somewhere around $22.9 million. And so with that, we went back and generated our project list. And just to give everybody an overview of what we did, under our cultural, recreation, and historical facilities, we had put in there $4 million, which out of the whole total was about 17.42%. Parkland improvements was a group of park improvement areas. Avalon Park expansion at $2 million. Alexander Park Phase 2 West at $1.1 million. Alexander Park Phase 2 East at $200,000. Cemetery improvements at $500,000. Jonesboro Road Park improvements at $535,000. All in all, those projects make up about 19.1%, 01% of our total $22 million. Public safety was the next. We would purchase 4 cars over the life of the 4 years of the SPLOS, 4 per year at a total of $600,000. That was about 2.61%. Public safety radios, as you know, our radio system, we help to keep in contact with Homeland Security upgrades. I think we're going from 800 megahertz to gigahertz, if I'm not correct. Oh, you got, Chief? I think that's the new system that they're asking us to upgrade to. 900, excuse me. And so part of that is our allotment in terms of the local cities. Our share of that cost was right around $624,000. IT infrastructure, $500,000, and 2 fire trucks to replace our aging fire trucks at $700,000. That made up 10.56% of our total SPLOS allotment. And then we had street improvements. Under the category, we had sidewalks, road improvements, and under road improvements, we had the Griffin Drive, Spalding Drive, road improvements, McDonough Parkway, and part of this are 2 sections of McDonough Parkway. McDonough Parkway intersection at Highway 20 and 81, and then your McDonough Parkway extension that goes above 42 over to 155. Both of those were joint projects with the county. The 20 McGarity Lawrenceville potential roundabout at $300,000. Veterans Drive pavement improvements, $100,000. Gateway Terminus East and West, right up $700,000 combined. Intersection improvements, $300,000. That was 10.6 million, or 46% of our projects. So right around 46, the majority of our projects are captured in roads and street improvements. The Housing Authority, I think all of the municipalities and the county jointly wanted to, or the city wanted to join with the county, with the McDonough Housing Authority, was they looked to redevelop some of their aging housing stock at $500,000. And then there was a joint program between the cities and the county and Southern Crescent Technical College for the second building on the campus, if I'm not mistaken, to start that at $1 million. And I think all of the other jurisdictions were basically putting into that pool as well to get that up. That would match to get the state to put up any of their funds to make that building happen. And that's basically at 4.35%. So that's basically what we did with our allotment in terms of our projects and how they're spread over that $22.9 million. We came back in December of 2013 after the referendum was approved. Yes, ma'am.
I hate to stop you in the middle, but under street improvements, the Gateway Terminus West, it just has street there, and it was always the roundabout at Jonesboro and Doris Street.
And as you see, we can make these, when we start going through the numbers and paring down, we can make those, you can see them, and we'll save this as a, I'll save this as a separate file and send this to you all electronically as well as in paper copy.
Frederick,
Yes, ma'am.
what is the Gateway Terminus East?
Gateway Terminus East is the other end of the one-way Paris roundabout, Highway 20, where it's coming back in 81, excuse me, Highway 81 East. When the one-way pairs come back, they're supposed to terminate at that point. Right now it currently comes up by the Huddle House. I think the county, the GDOT has purchased properties going further back and coming back along, back to 81, and there's a potential for us to do a roundabout at that point. Yes, Postmaster Drive. And what that would do is, on that end, that would facilitate the continuation of potentially 4-lane and all the way into, covering Newton County, excuse me, in the future. If you just do it and they looked at that to determine whether or not we could be able to keep that project. I think that project is on the state, STIP program as well as, ARC's program, but it's out there. It's not in their plans, but it's out there. And by doing that roundabout would enable us to have that funds going there. We do any other improvements in there that could jeopardize the 4-lane.
And
this
those
federal money.
funds are only for right of way, not for actual build, because the cost of building those were going to be absorbed in the one-way payers. And that's what they stated.
Okay.
That's what ARC stated. And what was stated at the time that we put the money in the project.
So the 350 is for right away?
Right of way on both ends. No, we're not building them.
Back in December, we discussed, I think there was some talk about us doing our bond financing of projects, and we looked to pay down SPLOST 3, remember, was right around $7.3 million, of which we bond financed for our so-called shovel-ready projects, to get them up with those projects up and running. This year, under SPLOST 4, we picked an allotment of projects, and I'll go through those. Under cultural, recreation, historical facilities, we put $3.5 million. Parkland improvements, all of those projects stayed in, which was Avalon Park, Alexander Park, Phase 2 West, Phase 2 East, the cemetery in Jonesboro Road Park at $4.3 million, or 34%. Public safety, we did not fund the cars, but we did the radio system because that's something that the county 911 folks are making a priority to go. Our IT infrastructure and the 2 fire trucks were our priority there. The cars would be on a pay-go basis with excess funds. And the street improvements, we did $2.8 million on those, which were Phillip Drive, McDonough Parkway, the 2 parts of McDonough Parkway and Veterans Drive were the ones that we picked at $2.8 million, and we did not put any funds in for housing or education. That was $12.562 million. In our discussions, we basically said, I think this number need to be pared down just a little bit. And in my discussions with Tim Young today, so I'm gonna be switching back and forth, so y'all bear with me a little bit. Change my view. Alright. Let me highlight this area specifically and zoom in on this. And speaking with Tim Young today, what he informed me was that the county's validation for bonding was somewhere around 100,000 of that. 25% or 25,000 a year was what would be allotted to the municipalities to bond finance.
25,000?
25 million, excuse me, would be, and that's basically the breakdown share of how that would run. So in essence, when we were talking about 9 million, we were just a little bit high as it relates to what our allotment would be under, and talking to Tim on that. So we've got to pay down to that number there. Those are the breakdown if Stockbridge and Locust Road and Hampton, what their allotment would be. I know there's been some discussion right now that the county is looking at doing 11 million in bonds. They had a meeting last month, and 2 of their district commissioners brought projects at a tune of 11 million, and those were the only ones they were gonna bond finance ahead of time of pay-go. The other commissioners, I think, did not bring projects forward. And so they're looking at doing theirs later in the year, according to the documentations we've gotten from them. Somewhere in November, talking to Bill Kemp, October, November timeframe is when the county is looking at actually doing theirs. But as you know, we got a correspondence from Buddy Welch, who's been coordinating with us on our SPLOST and LOST and service delivery. asking us to go ahead and put our spots list together so we can work with the county. And right now, Locust Grove is doing the very same. My understanding of it is Hampton is not going to do anything, and as you know, Stockbridge has been kind of quiet. I think they just got the new county manager on board, so I don't know where their priorities are right now. And I haven't been able to contact Michael Harris at this point. I guess he's swamped walking in the door first thing. He's trying to get his hands wrapped around stuff, so hopefully I'll be able to get in contact with him to find out if they're going to be participating. But right now, my understanding of it is Hampton is not. Tim Young did express to me that their projects is gonna come in around $3 million. And so they're hoping to work with Hampton, if Hampton does it, to see if they can get some portion of their share of these lots. So when we keep our mind in tune, when we're looking to pay down our projects from 12 million, the number that we're looking at is going to be, I'm gonna plug this in on the side,
3615.
9 million, 8 million, oh, you're right.
89475.
8947.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2 zeros.
2 zeros.
It's gonna bring us right at about 8.7. Unless we.
Can y'all see that? So that's the number we gotta pay down to. You know, my recommendation to everybody, and this is just a recommendation to get to the fast and quick number, and we can battle this back and forth to get paid down, is to, because I know Parks has been a hot item and nobody really wants to touch the fire department and the police department stuff. And the roadway improvements that we've already listed. The fast and dirty would be this route. And that gets us to remove the cultural resource stuff, and that gets us to 9.062. Now that's if we all agree that that's what the route you wanna take, and then we've gotta pay down to get to that 8.9. And how do we do that? But that's just a recommendation to get us close. That's a recommendation to do it as quick as possible without,
We're still,
but we'll be still a bit short, so that's
250
now we have to say where we're gonna get that difference from.
The McDonough Housing Authority, they're in desperate need of that county.
Well, we weren't bond financing them up front, Mr. Mayor.
We went out.
No, sir. In December, we agreed not to do those. We'd go on a pink over them.
Some Crescent 2015, that doesn't bother me, yeah.
So right now, our list is to get down to that 8.9 is to basically look at what we have in the next 3 categories of parkland improvements, public safety, and streets improvements.
But initially, we were talking about 7 million or 7.5, and then this is an updated version from Tim at 25%.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I was hoping we'd stay at 7.
yes. These numbers are the latest numbers that I got from Tim on the breakdown of what the county would finance, and then when you put our pro-rata share in, that's just what it's coming up to. Now, that number could be increasing. I think we just bounded back and forth briefly, me and the city attorney and Lee, and obviously that will take a separate agreement or an amendment to an agreement. We don't know yet. That's something we have to investigate, because we just found this out this afternoon. If Hampton is not going to be doing anything, will they be willing to free up their portion of their NUD bond financing? That's a discussion that can happen.
And that could come back into cultural.
Well, it depends. Obviously, I know Tim said that they're about 500,000 short on their end. So if they were to ask Hampton, they would be they would be asking to take 500,000 from their allotment into Locust Grove.
I think we need to get our number under this 8.9 to be on the safe side. And
we need to go into 8.9, and that's, our allotment for bonding.
I just mean, I don't wanna go over the line. That's all I'm
Oh, okay.
The other side,
Or under it, if we take off the cultural line.
the other side of this equation, I think that could be helpful is this,
What, and she, Councilman Renati had a question.
Mhm.
We're not under it if we take off just the cultural, correct?
No.
We're at the nine.
right now you're 9.06.
We're still 250 short, or over, however you want to say it.
250.
250,000.
So in essence, what one of the things that we were talking about with staff is, you know, McDonough Parkway, Highway 55 and Turner Church. When you talk about bond financing, you're asking the bond finance projects that are basically ready to go projects. And the little discussions I've had, that portion of McDonough Parkway is not
That
gonna
was
be
the
done
first two
in
to
the
jump
next,
off the page.
in the next 2 years.
You know, that's not something we could do this calendar year, quite honestly,
No.
at all.
I know some engineering and preliminary work has been done on 2081 and McDonough
So
Parkway.
that's 1.5 million there, right?
But that's 700,000, if you eliminate that right there, that puts you under.
And also the other parkway, right?
The other one, that one I think is pretty close.
Is it?
I think they've already got some preliminary engineering work done on the 2081, McDonough Parkway. I think they've already got some preliminary engineering work already done on that
The
section.
one that is finished, and we are going to have to keep in mind, that has been approved, and the design is finished, is at Jonesboro Road and Dar Street.
When was this list of projects that you selected done, but this was back prior
For voting,
before I come on the council?
Yes, this was
Before
done,
the
yes.
election.
So
Plus,
our priorities were set then,
yes, sir, those lists were done because
parkland is more, park improvements is more important than public safety and street improvements.
no, sir, you have,
Well, most of the money is
this,
going into parkland improvements.
this is what you have under parking and improvements and public safety. The only thing that you're not bond financing to have up front is just the cars. They've always been done under a pay-go situation.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just, thank you, I just wanted to jump in for a moment and highlight one thing that Fred pointed out a moment ago, and that was when you're thinking about which projects to cut or maybe move funding away from, there's some language in the SPLOST 4 intergovernmental agreement that speaks to your bonds and the projects and that sort of thing, and that is, just bear in mind that the bond money you're taking, you're supposed to have spent it all within 3 years of the date of issuance of these bonds. So when you select these projects, they should be your priority projects that you've already gotten ready to go, have your, some preliminary work done on, should be shovel ready, ready to hit the ground running on so that you spend your money and they're ready to be done within those 3 years. And further, not less than 5% of the amount deposited into the construction account, and that's the bond funds, that has to be accounted for. It has to go under contract within 6 months of the date the bonds are actually issued. So again, this is just your top priority projects, things that are ready to go, and the other language that I'll draw to your attention is that you gotta finish these projects. The ones you start with the bond money are the projects you have to finish, and if you run out of bond money, you have to use your project money, and if you run out of project money, you gotta use your general fund. So just bear that in mind when you're, selecting your projects and thinking through those things.
Okay, Frank?
Well, I think we all need to hear that one more time, because we have to know that the projects are shovel-ready. And then we have to be committed to, hopefully, the numbers that are there are going to finish.
For the bond money especially, that's what you're really focusing on tonight.
What, that they're
The bond.
shovel-ready?
That's right.
I
Because
have,
those are your-
I have some reservation about projects being specifically shovel-ready, because it does impact the Jonesboro Road part. While the land is available, there's still some design elements and some acquisition of programming that needs to take place. That's not a 3-year process, but the funds have to be in place in order to move what was a SPLOST 3 project forward. And I just want folks to keep that in mind as well. And I do want to speak to what Councilperson Roger indicated about the priority rankings. When we were ranking, or at least when we were deciding upon funding for different categories, I know it looks as though public safety has a lesser priority than parkland improvements, but these are projects that we elected to pay for using SPLOST dollars as opposed to paying for them using other financing such as general fund. So it appears to be a lesser value based upon this SPLOST 4 ranking, but not based upon the priority within the city of McDonough.
Also, the Wesley Lakes, Jonesboro Road Park location, the money that was in there was really out of SPLOST 3 to purchase the land. There was nothing else available for that.
The total money for parkland improvement is $4,365,000. We're asking, to be bonded $4,365,000. That tells me that our priorities are parkland improvement, not public safety and street improvements. We have potholes all over the place. We need to pave some streets.
If you'll look back for street improvements, SPLOST money that can be spent is up to $10,673,000, which trumps anything that's on the list.
But we're only spending $2,873,000.
Frederick,
On
on
the
the
bond.
bond, right, because Frederick, do you have the list that shows all of the streets that we've decided upon in terms of street improvements? Because there's a comprehensive list.
It's on the
It's
front.
on the front of the very first page.
Not all the streets, you're right.
Yeah, there were more than there, yeah, it's a full page.
The section that says road improvements is the one you want to spend.
Right.
You know, how, the term shovel ready, I mean, that could mean a lot of things.
That's $5 million.
What, these park projects, how shovel ready are they, in your opinion? If you had to guess.
You basically got one that's already designed and ready to go. That's where
That's
that's Alexander Park.
Okay.
You have one where you've already have acquisition, which is Jonesboro Park.
Is Avalon, is
Um,
all that
Avalon-
design work been done?
Avalon has not have any design work done on it. I know that Councilmember Warner was meeting with a local engineer who was doing trying to do some pro bono work, and she's not here to give us an update.
Right.
Right now, from a design engineering standpoint, Alexander Park is, because you've already spent, phase one of that was a lot of the design that was done in acquisition as well.
And what about the cemetery?
Cemetery is, you purchased the land, you've got some preliminary sketch that was done, by your staff here. So that could be something that could be turned within 3 years, yes.
The Avalon is one that concerns me hitting the 3-year mark. And, you know, that's a big chunk, if you take that off of this bond list, that gets us real close to the, or gets us way below the number that we need to be at. But again, I don't know where we stand on that part. I know it needs it,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it needs more parking, but the 3-year design.
Another thing you could consider, and Sandra, maybe this speaks to one of your concerns, is where part of the project is ready to go, you've identified the site. You've got property identified that you want to acquire, and you've got, that aspect of it. Or maybe on Avalon, and maybe that's already been acquired as well, maybe there are other, but there is property to acquire on Avalon, then, or, so maybe this speaks on that piece. Then you could do the bond money just for the property acquisition. In fact, that's what we did in SPLOST 3 with the property acquisition for the police building at the court site. So you can save project money to do the improvements.
Do we have any
Just
idea
as
what
a
that
thought.
number is?
Because I can get back to Councilman Vincent, I think they've been on tape for a while, West Lake.
Wesley Lakes, we put money, we took
Yeah.
money
Right.
from the parks section and purchased that property. There was nothing else in the past SPLOST for that.
But it was in SPLOST 3, the funds for acquisition came from SPLOST
They
3.
came from SPLOST 3, they were in Alexander Park funds.
No, they weren't.
Well, we'll discuss that later.
They were not.
Is that the settlement of the lawsuit?
No, it had nothing to do with the lawsuit. The lawsuit was remedied prior to the acquisition.
What is the number if you take the overall number, if we take off the Highway 155 and Turner Church, which I think you already took off? If you take that off and you take Avalon off, what does that put our number at? Just curious.
If you take off, you said if you take off Avalon?
Avalon, I think you already took off the,
Okay, Avalon's gone, and what else?
I think you've already taken off, so what is that number there?
And Turner
You've got,
Church.
you've already got it, right?
You've already taken
And
off.
Turner Church is off, yes. 6.3,
So now we're at what?
6.3,
So you went out.
which is $1 million under what you bond finance on this plus 3.
So do we wanna put anything back at all for the cultural part of it? Because we have the Pope building and stuff like that. That we are in negotiations with. Do we want to, not be ready to step up on that? And I do know, I'm sorry we're behind the 8 ball as far as not knowing, exactly where DOT stands, but I know personally, and, have talked with DOT. And, I know that the one-way payers, we're supposed to do it start in 16, right? Well, no, I thought 16 is the, start date.
And you may be right, Bill. We've been
16.
through it so many times.
Yeah, I don't,
And
that project
anyway,
has been pushed back a
Anyway,
couple
I
of years.
just don't want us caught short if we have to purchase right away there. Although I think that, we have a way of taking care of that, that's been discussed earlier.
Well, if, I know, Mr. Pruitt, you mentioned wanting to do some paving, you'll have some wiggle room in there, where you right now you're at 6.3, so if y'all wanna change and put monies in there for, you realize you still have lot that you get on an annual basis, so this would be, any money you put in there would be in conjunction with your lot money that we get.
I think putting a little back into the road is definitely a good idea. And it's a culture as well, to speak to your point of future buildings that we could be ready for, but, I don't know what that number is.
If you put $500,000 back into paving based on our PCI, and that PCI is basically our pavement condition index, that's
Why don't we
Well,
put back the 750 that we were gonna do,
put it in, move it from where it was on the Turner Church and put the 750 on the road improvements.
Yes, sir.
yeah. That
You're at
was-
7 million.
Well, road improvements and sidewalks, so
well,
Well, that's the whole,
that's
the whole thing.
No, it wouldn't be, no, sidewalks is a totally separate, because you don't, we haven't had any design for sidewalks. So when you talk about pavement, you're talking about us just buying asphalt, depending on which road you're
I think
doing.
pavement is something, the way our streets
Going
are.
on.
well, we need to pay
The
them,
pavement.
and sidewalks.
And then we need to, try to go ahead and get a grant to design and then do work
Yeah,
on sidewalks.
I think the 7 number is a good target, because it gives us flexibility, right?
There's
Sure.
nothing
I
there
have
for the cultural area.
I have a question, to Frederick
Yes, ma'am.
regarding the removal of funds from Avalon Park, and that's because Councilperson Varner is not here. Do you know how far the plans have progressed?
She had not any, all I know is she'd met with a local, landscape architect folks who was gonna do some pro bono work, but where they are in the process.
And we don't know what the cost of the land's going to be.
Some of that could be paid with those, the design
Purchase of the
work
land.
and the land, that could be pay as we go. That's why, not knowing where we stand in that park, I can't feel comfortable putting it on our bond list, quite honestly. And pay as you go, that money will start coming in shortly, correct?
Jim,
Well, because we're not bond, right now, we don't have any projects bonded, any monies we start collecting would be pay-go money at this point.
Right,
Now,
okay.
when we do a bond finance, the priority will be repay back of bonds, anything in excess of that will trickle into
To the page.
other projects.
Okay.
I like that seven.
I think we got a pretty good list, so. I don't know if I'm the only one who feels that way.
Somebody made it,
So what,
John?
Frederick,
Yes,
again,
ma'am.
if you could recapture the modifications?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. The modifications now is, let's do this. Let me say this is a separate item.
Nothing for cultural. I'm gonna say it one more time.
Give
Do we have an idea of
Give me a
what-
second, let me do this.
We had allotted originally $500,000 for the Pope building to purchase from the county and to do the repairs and to be able to move and consolidate.
No,
So that's
it's the third.
7.6, I'm still comfortable with that.
I don't think we have specified a specific amount, because and the reason why I say that is because the Pope building,
We don't know what that.
Building
Play
was
Plaza,
500,000.
these were all the projects that I brought to the table,
Right.
so that's why I know
And
what
I have
the
the
request
breakdown that
was.
we did, and I just didn't bring it
Do
with us.
you remember
It was-
what that number
Train
is?
station was 500, the cemetery was 500, the Pope building was 500, and the remainder, 2,500,000 was for the, for the theater.
And we grouped them all together. There is not a legal designation of funds because we didn't have anything to actually substantiate that. But I do have a question, Frederick, relative to the depot. If we don't have any funds in this category and something moves forward relative to the depot, then where does that put us?
When you say something move forward relative to deeper meaning,
Acquisition, partnership, all of those conversations are underway.
And that's what I think if we put a little bond to have some reserves for that. Now, my question is, I guess towards Lee, if we say that's what that money's for, it never materializes, what happens then? If we
Well,
say,
the projects you identify for bond funding are the projects you have to spend the bond money on, so you can't change your mind later.
and see, we don't own any of these projects yet, so if we end up not buying them, then we have really,
Now, if a project becomes infeasible because you can't acquire the necessary
Remove.
permits, you can't get title to it, something like that, you can go through a rather lengthy process and you can change it at that point,
and
but,
that reason's right there why I don't
yeah.
really wanna bond it.
But it's tricky because, when you go to the bond market, that's, the buyers buy bonds.
Right.
That's what their security is. They look at the different projects and they say, that's how they weigh the risk and decide what they're willing to, what kind of interest rate and that sort of thing. And that's why you wanna keep your bond projects the same from start to finish, or it affects it affects the buyer's
I agree.
interest. And it
I'm
can potentially
comfortable
affect
with
the tax exempt status, so.
The Pope building's another thing, I've got 11, I'm gonna bring it up 21st, wants us to share with them what our thoughts are, so I haven't even sent it out yet.
I just would hate to put on our bond list a project we don't know anything about.
Pope building, I understand that, but not that big. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how's it coming, Fred?
Sandy wanted to know what we removed.
Seven oh six, 625.
Okay. Trying to get it where we can see it as I do it.
You still have Avalon on that list?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back. So this is where we were just a minute ago, at 12.5.
Yes. And you,
This is where we are now, at 7:26, and the changes, you're gonna see them take place in front of you as we go make it, hopefully this is.
Turner Church is gone, and it goes back to road improvement. 750 goes back into road improvement.
So cultural is gone,
Did you put the 750 in road improvement? No.
yeah, it's gonna show up.
He's going in.
I'm going backwards as we delete. So your 750 from Turner Church is now gone, as we make the
But you need to put it
changes.
in road improvement.
Yes, it's gonna pop back up. What I did, Gail, was I saved with the changes that
Okay,
you
it's
guys
all right.
recommended.
It's all right.
I saved it and PDF'd it, so it's a separate document that can't be changed, so that's locked in and it's dated as of today. What you're seeing in front of you is the actual spreadsheet that we're changing and going back towards. So we've taken out, let's just stay still. We've taken out Avalon, we've taken out, at this point,
The cultural.
Avalon Park is out. Not yet, hold on, not yet.
And it's only out of the bond list, just so we're clear.
That's all it is.
That That's correct.
Won't think we're taking it on.
Avalon Park is out, and then we removed, monies from the streets. We basically reprioritized the 750 from the upper end of the McDonough Parkway between, 155, Turner Church Road area. And we retasked that money. And we were looking at the 50, and then 750 retasked the road to repaving, which is right here, right there, at 750.
That's very important.
Okay.
Drive's number one priority in my mind.
And those are your changes.
And
To
can,
get us to
and
7,062,000.
Phillips Drive can certainly be done in the next 3 years.
Yeah, we're ready to go. We're gonna be ready to send it.
We just need to have a budget.
And so right now, on the Phillips Drive project, realize we're using stormwater funds to get it moving. The SPOS will reimburse the stormwater. Because we did the reimbursement resolution back last year. So any monies that we spend from any other part would be reimbursed back to the SPOS funds.
We, on Phillips Drive there, we know it's gonna cost $1,273,000. That's an estimate.
That was a very good estimate done,
I'm guessing 1.5.
by a Public Works Department.
As long as we finish it, we're okay.
And that's basically, all that is the gap. That's the gap between where the intersection improvements at Highway 2081 was done. Because, you know, if you go down that road, the sidewalks basically stop right before head lane.
Right.
And then, you know, we just made the improvements on the old Griffin Road. We restriped how the turn lane done there. That'll go from that point to that point in between. And they're looking at curb gutter sidewalks in there.
But there was some discussion about tying it into Racetrack Road. Is that included in that?
No, that's
No.
not. No.
That would be something that's separate, I don't know.
Yeah,
if we
I
can
can
look at
see
it.
it right now.
Okay.
So your new SPOS bonded list is, and I'll go through them for you. It's gonna be parkland improvements, Alexander Park Phase 2 West and Phase 2 East. The cemetery expansion, Jonesboro Road, 2.3 million. Public safety is gonna be your updated radio system, IT infrastructure and fire trucks at 1.8 million, rounded numbers. Street improvements will be road repaving based on our PCI, Phillips and Griffin, McDonough Parkway, Veterans Drive at 2.8 million. And your grand total is gonna be 7.062 million, which is basically right around 300,000 less than what you did on this SPOS 3.
And
Back in
something about the 750 that's going to be really usable for us is that if we can get Jonesboro Road turned over for us to look after the planting, then we are able to utilize that money then becomes better utilized because we now have the agreement with the county for so much work to be done. So it allows us to do more.
Okay,
We're swapping out our work on Jonesboro Road and keeping it for equal amount of
And
paving.
I will email, if this is fine the way it is, I will email this to you guys electronically and also put a hard copy in your box.
Do we need to go ahead and vote on
I would want y'all to accept this list as is, yes ma'am. No,
All right.
we know everybody's.
Councilperson,
so moved?
have a second?
Second.
Second. Anybody have a question? I really feel comfortable. I didn't want to go much over 7 million and, but, you know, 8 not that far along, but we talked some people
Where are
about
we?
65, and I applaud you for this. If we can get support for it. Anybody have any questions?
Yes,
Ms. Price?
that's your total right there, Ms. Gail.
Got a motion?
The motion is to accept as presented tonight with the new update using the figure 7,062,500.
All right. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Those in opposition, I believe it's
Okay,
two.
I didn't, anybody in opposition?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
I don't believe so.
We want to see everybody's hand again?
6 in favor.
Yeah, I think we're all set. Fred, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. This is,
Frederick,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mayor, I'm sorry,
No.
on park improvements, that leaves us with what final percent of total parkland improvements?
Hold on for me.
You know, we You're gonna send that to us, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. He's gonna-
Percentage 33.49. Streets improvements are 40.6.
For what?
Total percentage of your 7 million,
The bond funds.
the bonded funds. And parkland is 33.4.
Oh, my lights are going out in my head. Thank goodness.
You got it?
Public safety is at
You got it, Ms.
25
Gill?
and 83.
Public safety 25.83, parklands 33.49, streets 40.69.
Good job, Fred.
You're welcome, sir.
Good job, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Thank you. Thank you. Long decision, man. And we'll be getting updated tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
What else do you have, Fred?
That's it.
That's it? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're down to item number 9, that's one I have, and, I really sincerely believe this is a wonderful investment for the city. The citywide organizational study, done a lot. Had a lot of conversation with these two firms. It's hard to decide whether Springstead or the Mercer Group. Steve Egan and Ms. Kennedy were very, very impressive folks. So was John Anzavini. But I would recommend to you tonight that we prepare to accept the proposal of the Mercer Group. Jim Mercer is president, Steve Egan is senior vice president, and of course Ms. Kennedy is a part of that. The total cost, ladies and gentlemen, is $29,500, which is basically the same as Springstead. $29,500 over a period of about 5 months. I think we'll benefit from it. I think it's a major investment in the city for not only today, but for the future relative to our organization that we have at this time. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would recommend that we go with the Mercer Group over a period of 5 months at $29,500, and of course they have already indicated their interest in the city. We had a long conversation yesterday with them. I'll be calling Mr. Anzavini tomorrow after we decide whether you would accept my recommendation for this proposal. With that, I recommend we go with the Mercer Group. Entertain motion.
Mayor,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just
Yes, ma'am.
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, can we state for the public our reason for doing this study?
Well, my reason is just overall assessment of our current operations, and as I said, it's very citywide organizational study. I just think it's something that needs to be done, and maybe every 5 years. It's been so long. I think we talked about it, Ms. Benson, about 4 or 5 years ago. But
We've
overall,
not done one of these since
no
I've
ma'am,
been
no
here,
ma'am,
so.
no ma'am, we have not. You're exactly right.
We
But
did.
overall assessment and analysis of our operation, I think is very important that we have an independent study. Now, you can go to the University of Georgia, you can go to ARC, but I just don't think you get the results that you would want there. So my recommendation to you and other members of the council is they would go to this independent body. This is a business. They have done hundreds of these organizational studies, and they have been very, very productive for those that have chosen to go with them. This is their business, and so that's about the extent of it. Any other questions?
Just one more.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm sorry.
Anyway,
Just one more, and this has to do with my comments at our last meeting relative to the municipal court system. You know, there's a lot of information that's circling around out there, and we just want to make sure that we are in a position where we have addressed the concerns. So as far as the structure of the municipal court and how that particular body reports to the city, what role will this group play in making recommendations on that?
Ms. Benson, I'll be honest and sincere and genuine. I have not personally discussed that part, but that's a part of the process, and I can assure you once, we have a conversation with him, that proposal will be incorporated in what, if we decide to sign, where you'll be totally comfortable with it. I think it's a legitimate point.
I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
will there be any prioritization to that?
I
In
don't know how
terms
that
of
would be any
what's-
more prioritized than any of the other parts.
I think for this reason, the first part was we're doing this overall assessment based on trying to find out where we are from an efficiency standpoint. I get that. But as far as the municipal court is concerned, there are concerns which are coming from the community at large. And I just want to make sure that we are responding to the concerns. Again, this is about a system. It's not about an individual. I said it last time, it's not an indictment against the chief. I think he does a great job, but this is about a potential for conflict of interest based upon the structure of a system. So if he wasn't there and I was there, or somebody else was there, is there potential for conflict of interest based on the fact that you've got oversight for the police department, the municipal court, and the probation? So, given that we're getting all this feedback, and I don't know if anybody else is getting it, but I'm getting hammered.
I haven't
So-
had any, quite honestly.
This is,
Well, I have. And so I want to make sure that we are addressing what folks have indicated as being concerns.
we will have we will appoint a group, to work with these folks. I'll have that conversation tomorrow. You will have to be comfortable with the contract. We'll talk about this. I guess I kinda halfway see where you're coming from, but this body will be kept informed once we select this team to work with them. And I hadn't recommended anybody at this point in time, but, they
And
will.
so in terms of the team that will work with the individuals, I know with one of the vendors, they indicated that it would be the entire city council. I don't think that I heard that from, the group that's being recommended.
Mercer did.
Yes.
Mercer was actually the one that mentioned the steering.
They call it a steering committee.
That was
Now, this
Mercer.
is, yeah, Mercer said the steering committee,
Yes.
but that steering committee was gonna be comprised of certain individuals, not the entire city council.
Correct.
So it was the other vendor that said it would be they would be talking with the entire council. So my question is, in terms of deciding who will be on the steering committee, who will make that determination?
I don't know, we haven't gotten there yet. I guess what I'll probably do is seek your recommendations, other members of the council, and then I'll make it, subject to the council's approval. Welcome input from everybody,
And I think he wanted a broad cross-section on that steering.
including the Merchants Association.
I do like the fact that the other vendor said that he would talk with each individual council person.
Well, now Mercer did say they would sit down and have one-on-ones with everybody.
With everybody.
They did say that. So it's not that one group is gonna talk to us and one's not. But the steering committee, you're right, it won't be us. There might be some of us on it, but it'll be a cross-section
So
of department heads.
what will be the role of the steering committee? What will they do?
The way I understand it is to guide the study, the way I understand it. That's how it was proposed to us that night. And I think you asked the question of who would be on it,
And I will say this, it's very important who sits on that steering committee, that they really know the city well enough to guide it. Because it can't be one or two people guiding the direction and everybody else nodding. It needs to be people who really do, understand the city and what is, trying to be achieved and what, what's going on.
they're a professional organization. I'm sure they can guide us on that. This isn't the first city they've done. So they can guide us
Can't
on
find that nowhere.
what that committee needs to do and who.
I respect, the fact that they're a professional organization. I fully agree with what Gail just said, because if you're not careful about who sits on that committee, or if you are careful about who sits on that committee, then there can be an outcome that's basically not what we're seeking to have happen, which is a a fair and unbiased assessment of where we are as a city.
Couldn't agree more.
And-
So I
Couldn't agree
really
more.
wonder, based on the fact that there are two, schools of approachment for this same task, do we really need a steering committee, or is it that this particular firm just needs to talk to all stakeholders? Now, was it our recommendation that we have a steering committee, or was it their recommendation?
It's our recommendation in both cases.
But,
They call it one, called the steering committee, the other called it project something.
Yeah, they're both gonna have the same, and I haven't worked with either one of these two companies,
Just
but,
the terminology was different.
yeah, it's verbiage on it. They're all doing the same thing basically, and the ones I've been part of, the steering committee, is really just to get them off the ground and running. And then when the group has questions that maybe they don't understand how things work, that's where the steering committee will answer those questions. Steering committee is probably a bad word for it. They're not actually steering the drive, but they're advising and answering questions that maybe they don't understand or need.
and just an advisory committee is what it should be, you know, or not
We want it to
advisory.
be unbiased as possible, so I think it's, the less interaction a committee has with this group, the better, quite honestly.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I disagree with
And
that.
that's just two ways of thinking.
I understand, because I think that the elected folks, the department heads, the employees, the citizens, and other key stakeholders should all be a part of the process. I think it was
And they will be,
Neil.
they will speak to every one of them.
I think it was Neil here the other week who made the statement about, you know, if you ask the community, then you'll get some of the answers that you're seeking. So what I don't want, and I think you all can relate to what I'm about to say, what I don't want, or let me say it a different way. If you write a particular scope of service and you commission a body to adhere to that scope of service, even if there are other observations, they can be left out because of the fact that there is a particular scope of service that has been written. We've all experienced that around this table. So again, my statements about the steering committee and not knowing who the steering committee is gonna be, you know, there should be some type of predetermination as to what representation will sit on that body and how many slots there will be.
And they did that somewhat that night. They said there would probably be 2 council members, mayor and council, 2 of them, merchant, and
So
that was.
who determines what council people sit on that?
You know, that's probably something that we'll have to decide on that. You know, we can take a vote internally. I don't know. I personally, I don't want to be on it because I want to be, like I said, we're 2 different schools of thought. I feel like we should have a hands-off approach on this. Let these professionals do what they do. And I don't know who picks, I can't answer your question, but what I did like about Mercer's group is, it goes back to what Mr. Daniels said. They were the only ones that mentioned, we're gonna bring in the merchants and talk to them. The other committee was strictly.
And the other
in-house.
committee was a little bit too much, too short of time, and they weren't really gonna talk to the
It was only 3
employees. And I really want the committee to talk to the employees. They need an opportunity to talk to
The
them
overall-
because too much, there, you know, like the example I gave, that when we gave the employees an opportunity to step up and help us, when we were trying to get through some lean times, they stepped up and made the difference. And they're the ones that had the knowledge to do it. We, as a sitting body, did not have that knowledge, but they did. They had the day-to-day knowledge and the day-to-day focus on, you know, how to do it.
Yeah, overall assessment includes individual interviews with key stakeholders. Key stakeholder are you folks, number 1, okay? Senior management, number 2. Department heads, number 3. And then group interviews with employees, you may recall.
By
Yeah,
departments.
About so, yeah, that's, yes.
And they also mentioned merchants.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
That's key stakeholders.
And a merchant would be on the steering committee for.
And it's not only just merchants, there needs to be, professionals within our community too, representing professional groups within our community.
And that was it.
We have our medical, because my goodness, we have a massive medical community
Okay, yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and legal community.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Study, you know, the committee, I mean, the two, then first made the decision, whatever, do we have to have a steering committee?
You know, we could probably
I mean,
request
we-
not to have one.
Yeah,
I've been here, last time, I guess 10 years ago, we did it, and we did not have a steering committee.
So you've done this, I didn't know you
Yeah.
done, oh, you
I think
did?
he's talking about the pay classification
Right.
study when the ARC
Yeah.
came
Oh,
in. It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
a
Yeah.
steering
no, that was
committee.
ARC, when they did the
I'm
pay
sure
class.
we could request not to have one.
Yeah, because
You
you
know,
get too,
I would be of the opinion that that would be the
Right.
right way to go, but I'm not,
yeah.
that doesn't have to be for me, but I would.
And I would, thank you, Craig, I would feel comfortable with that as well. And I will also make the caveat of making sure that we're, and we've said it, but I want to say it this way, that we are community inclusive. We know that our downtown is our beachfront, but there are so many other businesses in the city of McDonough, and we want to make sure that they're all
Like what I was saying,
And
we have our
and
industrial
and
complexes that
we'll
have been
certainly
here.
convey that, and if y'all decide.
Yeah, we've had the industrial, element within our city that has been, a cornerstone for us. And, like I said, medical and things of that nature,
They
so.
will be coming down, doing an informal, we'll have a conversation with them, and we'll.
And maybe
talk
if we
about
all sit together and we say this to them, then they'll,
all of these issues, that's the process.
right, and to keep in mind that we are the small town, and that, everybody that sees us expects us to
Okay.
know everything,
I
so.
want to make the motion to hire the Mercer Group to do a personnel study at a price of $29,500.
Thank you, sir. And assessment
Do we
and,
need to put in that motion too, without the steering committee, how we have that?
I would like to make that, he's making a friendly amendment.
Without the steering committee,
Take the steering committee,
Check it out.
request no steering committee.
right, no, right, definitely.
you have any?
No, James.
What are you going?
You want a second?
You want a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
That's fair enough, that's fair enough. Ladies and gentlemen, you got one more opportunity for questions. This is a bold move, I think it's a good investment. I checked with Movita yesterday, talked to her again this morning, talked to the firm yesterday, and we can certainly make it through July with what we have, 10% down, which is $3,000. And we're satisfied, she's satisfied, I'm satisfied, and the contract will reflect that. So, having said that, anybody have any questions? Time to vote. Those in favor of the motion, second on the floor?
Could we
Yeah,
also?
excuse me. Go ahead, Jan.
Could we add also in the motion, please, council members, that we name the Mercer Group?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Name the Mercer Group and give him permission to sign the contract? Give the mayor permission
Yes,
to
sir.
sign the
All
contract?
right, I make the motion, I thought I named it.
Yeah, I did too. The Mercer
I said
Group.
the Mercer Group for personnel study
Yeah.
for a total of $29,500 and give the mayor permission to sign the contract.
And you got a second that?
It's not a personnel study.
No, it's
Assessment.
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 It's
A
a
citywide
government,
organization, what's that?
it's a citywide organizational assessment, and I think that sounds much better. All the
That's
way
all right
around.
with you.
That's what it's
I'm
gonna
not.
There's another play on words.
Citywide organizational.
All right, Ms. Price, how
assessment.
about giving us a rendition of what we just said, and let's see if we can get a vote here sufficient to move forward.
The motion is to approve an organizational assessment study with the persons doing it, the Mercer Group, having no steering committee at a cost of $29,500.
With the mayor having.
Oh, and authorization to sign documents.
If I can, Ms. Janice?
Yes, yes.
If we could use that specific terminology that Councilperson Nadi indicated, citywide organizational assessment, I think that's important for consistency. Because there are a lot of studies out there and we don't want folks confused.
Okay, citywide organizational assessment study.
Yes, ma'am.
And, ladies and gentlemen, you've got an opportunity to vote for it. If you do, please raise your hand, and those in opposition, like it. Thank you, Councilman.
Are all hands up?
All hands on deck.
6 in favor,
All
Mayor.
hands on deck. Thank you so much, Ms. Benson, Ms. Body, councilperson. And having said that, let's see where we are. We've got 3 issues here, for executive session, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how long we'll be. I hope not too long. And having said that, I'm gonna entertain a motion to go into executive session for real estate item OCGA 50-14-3B1, litigation OCGA 50-14-2, and personnel OCGA 50-14-3B2. Entertain motion.
So moved.
Have a second? Second. Anybody have any questions? Any reservations? Ms. Price, please restate the motion and the second.
The motion is to go into executive session for real estate, OCGA 50-14-3B1, for litigation, OCGA 50-14-2, and personnel, OCGA 50-14-3B2.
All right, you're in favor, please indicate the raise of hand. In opposition, it's unanimous. End our workshop.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Question, any comment? Ms. Price, motion and second, please.
The motion is to go back into our regular workshop session.
Could you please raise your hand if you support that motion?
6
Those
in
in
favor,
opposition, it's unanimous. I'll give Ms. Benson a moment, and then we had 2 action items, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take them on an individual basis. Ms. Benson, is
Mayor?
you?
Yes, sir. Before I get started, I just wanted to announce for the record that I got a message from Councilperson Varner. She had an emergency and she had to take her son to Eggleston. He was having an asthma attack.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor, I move to accept the resignation of Public Works Director, Mr. Lee Hearn, effective July 22nd, 2014.
Second, and that was second. A motion second. Anybody have any questions? Any comment? Hearing none, Ms. Price, please restate the motion and the second on the floor.
The motion is to accept the resignation of the Public Works Director, Lee Hearn, effective July 22, 2014.
Okay, those in favor of the motion?
6 in favor,
Those
Mayor.
in opposition? Unanimous in favor. Okay, we have a second action item, Ms. Benson.
Mayor, I move to appoint Mr. Keith Dickerson as interim Public Works Director, effective immediately.
Second.
And a second. Got a motion and a second. Any questions? Ms. Price, we will be clear. Share the motion, second, what was done.
The motion is to appoint Keith Dickerson as interim Public Works Director, effective immediately.
Okay, those in favor of the motion, please indicate with raise of the hand.
6 in favor, Mayor.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Ms. Benson. Thank you so much. Mr. Administrator.
Very quickly, council members, as you know, this has been our typical workshop, but because we thought it was gonna have a long, bang down, drag them up, squash meeting, thank you all very much for making it quick and speak for us. We've moved a lot of agenda items that would have typically been on this date, we moved out into date certain, so I was hoping that we can have a call meeting agreed upon on a date, and so we can get back on schedule, without having to keep pushing these things back into the foreseeable future. The date, I mean, the mayor met, the 14th of this month, if that's a Monday. Is that amenable to have a call meeting?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, we'll do 6 o'clock, because I know time is pretty much, is that fine? That's on Monday.
What about it, ladies, gentlemen? Any objection?
No objections, I just make this recommendation. There were some items that we need to discuss under the, what's the name of our other group?
McDonough Finance.
McDonough Finance
So we can-
Authority,
Need to
that
have
we
that,
might
have that meeting first.
Yes.
make that a part
So
of
we
this.
can start at 6 o'clock for
5:30.
McDonough Finance
That'd be
Corporation,
fine.
and once we're done, go into regular workshop workshop meeting.
Yeah,
Is
we
that
need
5 o'clock or 5:30?
5:30.
Y'all, it's up to y'all, because I know time was a big issue when we were looking at scheduling a call meeting. Is 5:30 fine for everybody
Yeah, because
on
it
Monday?
won't take it.
Can
It's
we
gonna take-
conduct it in 30 minutes?
Yes.
instead
Oh,
of
yes.
averaging 5:30?
Yes.
Okay.
You're absolutely right, we need to bring that to close.
Yes.
Okay, McDonough Finance at 5:30,
5:30.
and our meeting or a workshop?
Workshop.
A workshop?
It doesn't matter, you can say meeting, because they still gonna
Special
vote
call.
on it, so. It's just a special call
Special call
meeting.
meeting.
14.
And I got one more item,
Okay.
Ms. Janice, you let me know if this is fine, because this is, we're putting 2 meetings back to back, Ms. Janice, and I know that sometimes can weigh on you. Do y'all want to reschedule the typical Monday, the 21st meeting and push that back to the 28th? It gives us time to put agendas?
No.
Because we're gonna be turning around and coming back with 2 sets of agendas, which means
Well,
staff won't have a little bit of time leeway to do, you see what I'm saying? We gotta prepare all of those things for both of those meetings.
Well, we-
If we do that, we'll
We
run
have
into May.
Okay, our typical meeting would be Monday the 21st. If we don't cancel that, you're gonna have one meeting on the 14th, and then the next week, you're gonna have a meeting on the 21st.
I don't have a problem.
but if we have them on 28th, don't we have another one on
Yeah.
the next week anyway?
Yeah, actually, that'd be,
So, I mean, either way,
that'd be, because you run into the first Monday.
And we've already got.
Yeah, because we got a list of things we need to get done and get out here with you guys, and that's why we really need to, but we'll make it out.
Actually, if we do 21st,
We'll make it
28th,
out.
it gives you a longer gap.
Yeah, we'll make it out, yes, we'll make it out.
Y'all gonna meet on my birthday?
Which is your no, we're not.
No, that's a holiday.
So you'll have a meeting on the 14th, and you'll have a meeting on the following Monday on the 21st. That's it. And after that, it'll go back to the regular schedule, which is the next workshop will be
That's
on
gonna change, it's in
the
stone.
first Thursday of the month, which is the first.
Anything else, young man?
That's it, sir.
Madam?
No, Mayor, I do not
No.
have anything. Thank you, glad to be here. It's been a hectic first week, but glad to be here.
It's
Thank
been
you.
good luck. Counselor?
I just have a question about those. When are they gonna paint the one-way signs on these streets?
They came out and did the two guys gentlemen came by and did the review. Let me call him, Councilman Pruitt, and be able to nail down a date specific, and then I'll get back with you on it. But yeah, they were out here looking at those areas, and what he's talking about is the issue of people coming out and making a right-hand turn rather than a left.
Right.
So going back east rather than going west. They've typically been doing it at Hardee's. We highlighted those spots for GDOT. They're gonna put arrows, basically one-way arrows, going this way on East Ferry Street at Hardee's, here at our spot, right next door at the bank, because that's where they typically, and then at the street of the old police department. Those, just basically letting folks know, hopefully they'll see the arrows and
Are those signs?
they'll be, no, they're gonna be in the street.
In the street,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Okay. Anything else? Here's nine.
No, thank you.
So, Counselor?
I just want to echo what Fred said. Good job, everybody on the SPOS. I think we did that pretty quickly, so thank you.
You want to give just a real brief synopsis of yesterday?
Yeah, I hate to get out in front of ourselves a little bit, but just so everyone knows, we had a pretty good meeting yesterday. The production company that puts on Miss Georgia and Miss Teen Georgia, they're looking for a new home. And it's down to 2 cities, McDonough, Georgia, and Macon, Georgia. We entertained a pretty good group yesterday. I had a lot of merchants involved and the county involved, and it looks good. We will know by Monday. And if we get it, both pageants would be in McDonough for at least 3 years.
That's awesome. Do we know how many Miss Georges we've had in the past that are from McDonough?
We have, the previous, she does not hold it now, but the previous was from McDonough. In fact, her mom, Molly was involved, very heavily yesterday because Mayor was with us. I don't speak pageant talk. I know you don't speak pageant talk.
I just look at the pretty women.
We had Molly there to give us the
Credibility.
verbiage, yeah. And in fact, the lady who owns just a little information, the lady who owns the production company is Lee Greenwood's wife. And he usually comes and sings at the pageant, so, and they usually sell about 800 to 900 tickets. The impact would be pretty good.
So we've got Miss Plus Size Georgia, and now this, and this is
they've been in Cartersville for the last 5 years, and they want to, 8 years, I'm sorry. They want to move out of Cartersville, and, it would be at the Performing Arts Center, the actual pageant, but it would be a 3-day affair. So it's,
Ms. Underwood, Ms. Vincent, what a delight.
she was.
She is just so gracious. And I think they, went over to performing arts, some of that kind of captured their imagination. Hotels being so close by and proximity. They had to go to Macon yesterday, but Craig said a while ago, when they came back, they kind of needed McDonough, so. It would be, it's a great event. We have to have a big luncheon. Reception gonna be done to the hotel folks, and they'll sell about $45,000 in tickets. But we'll still got a long way to go. To lay everything out, transportation's an issue, and I don't see anything we can't handle, but it would really be a plus, but.
Mayor, we probably, and I didn't think about this before, but we probably want to mention this at the next meeting, and that is just appreciation to staff for the job that they did during the Patrick Henry dedication. That was, the statue dedication was great. And your hair wasn't that bad.
Oh, let's not even talk about it. Thank you so much, and it's so good.
I have one thing.
It was a moment in history. It really was a moment in history. I hadn't forgotten about you.
Well, I
I
thought you were
hadn't
getting ready
checked,
to
no
adjourn.
ma'am, I have not checked your name off yet. You'd
I
stand up and speak if
No,
you
no,
like.
no, that's not necessary. Y'all, would you just take one more glance at your contact list? This is your last chance. You know, the public asked for this, and Lee, you and Fred don't have one yet. I was gonna give them a chance if they wanted to change something before I send it out to, because the ladies downstairs, our customer service personnel downstairs, they're all the time being asked for y'all's contact information, and I'd like to try to make it easy, and so, just if y'all have any changes, or if y'all are okay with this, just,
It still says Mayor Pro Tem on
Change it.
all of it.
oh, no, Ms. Rufus, okay, I'll mark that, thank you.
All right. You have anything else, madam?
Oh, no, sir, thank you.
Miss Janice,
Yes,
my phone number is wrong.
okay.
It's 404-797-7843.
404-797-7843.
You know what, I'm sorry. I called you from the wrong phone. We'll confirm after the meeting, I apologize.
I thought this was your city cell.
No, I'm sorry, I have 3 phones, I'm getting confused this
Well,
late.
you and I'll email or talk later.
This is Kane's copy.
Oh,
All right.
I've got mine.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Fred, thank you for that presentation tonight, the decision about the SPLOST. I think it's important. I'm grateful for your support of this recommendation. I think the city will benefit tremendously, and I can't thank you enough. What a wonderful meeting. And with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Let's all stand and go home.